Dane Cale woke to pain. His body slammed against metal as gravity twisted, then snapped. The drop pod shook with the fury of a meteor crashing through atmosphere. Flames licked the edges of the view slit. He caught one last glimpse of a grey alien, face smirking behind armored glass. Then darkness swallowed everything. The pod hit with a bone-shattering crunch. Dane tasted blood. He tried to move. Something hissed, hydraulics unlocking, and the hatch exploded outward. Heat slammed into him. Sulfur, ash, smoke, and something. Breathing slow, deep, predatory. He rolled out of the pod and hit solid ground. Cracked stone slick with condensation. Overhead, thick roots strangled the ceiling of this underground hell. The light was dim, flickering from plasma torches mounted. High on the jagged walls, the moment he looked up, he saw it. Eyes. Not one pair. Dozens. Gleaming like molten gold, blinking through the mist. They weren't watching. They were studying. A low growl rumbled through the cavern, then another, then more. Dane grinned through bloody teeth. So this is the part where I'm supposed to scream. He didn't. The pit was a myth. A place Karnak's elites whispered about when they wanted to scare each other. A biolab turned execution zone. Monsters from failed experiments, war beasts from dead civilizations, even ancient horrors that predated star charts, all thrown in and sealed away. And now, they'd tossed a human in. He cracked his neck. "Let's dance." From the shadows one emerged, massive black-scaled wings tucked tight against its sides. It stood taller than a shuttle, claws like razors, steam curling from its nostrils. A dragon. No other word fit. It stared. Then it stepped forward. Dane didn't run, didn't flinch. Instead, he met its gaze, and something shifted. A flicker of recognition. Not from Dane, from the beast. The dragon's wings opened slightly, then lowered its head and slow, deliberate. A second dragon stepped out, this one red, eyes burning like twin suns. Fayette let out a screech that shook stone from the ceiling. Dane turned toward it, heart pounding, adrenaline hot. He didn't move like prey. He didn't smell like prey. And when he bared his teeth and roared back, it wasn't fear. It was a challenge. The red beast stopped mid-charge. The black dragon growled once, a short, sharp sound. The red one backed off. Silence. Then, one by one, the dragons approached. 6, 10, 15. A ring of death, closing in. Dane stood in the center, fists clenched. Every instinct told him he should be dead, but instead, they bowed, not all the way. Not submission, recognition. High above, behind reinforced observation glass, the Karnak scientist dropped his tablet. No, that's not possible. He's not bonded. There's no implant, no sync collar. Another tech ran forward. "Sir," they're responding to his aura, not tech, instinct. The lead scientist stared down at the pit, pale. He's not bonding with them. He's commanding them. The comms lit up. A general's voice crackled through. "Begin termination protocol. We can't let this go further." But it was already too late. Down below, Dane sat on a flat stone, legs spread, arms resting on his knees. The dragons had formed a loose perimeter around him, like wolves circling their alpha. He wasn't sure why they listened. Some neural link, some freak genetic echo, didn't matter. They listened, and he was already thinking 10 moves ahead. He needed to map the terrain, learn the dragons' behavior, test their limits. Because this place, it wasn't just a death trap, it was a weapon forge. And he was about to walk out wielding fire-breathing hammers. A distant roar echoed from one of the deeper tunnels. Bigger, deeper, older. Dane stood slowly. Showtime. He turned to the black dragon, the first one. Its scales shimmered in the low light like oil on water. "You need a name," it rumbled. "Ashfang," Dane said. "That sound good to you?" Ashfang bared its teeth. Not in aggression, in agreement. Dane climbed up its front leg, gripping the spiked plate behind its neck. He settled between the shoulder blades. The beast shifted, wings flaring once. For the first time in Karnak's history, a human rode a dragon. He didn't scream. He smiled. And far above the pit, in cold corporate boardrooms filled with smug alien faces, someone laughed when they heard a human had been thrown into Sector D. "Poor thing," they said. The dragons will tear him apart. But they hadn't watched closely enough. They hadn't seen who fell. They thought they threw a human into a cage of monsters. They didn't realize he was the real monster. As night fell, the dragons descended on the nearest Karnok's outpost, a fortress of metal and stone hunkered down in a dried riverbed. Its multiple turrets and electrified fences meant it would have been impossible to infiltrate undetected. But brute force wasn't the name of the game. Not anymore. The Karniks didn't send guards to kill him. They sent a containment team. 10 soldiers, in exo-armor, pulse rifles set to disintegrate, helmets tuned to suppress psychic influence. They weren't coming to ask questions. They were coming to erase him. Dane watched them drop in from a pressure shaft overhead, sleek like wasps, moving in formation, guns locked. His fingers flexed around Ashfang's scales. The dragon snarled. Beneath him, lips pulling back to reveal gleaming fangs. The Karniks had made their first mistake. They came expecting a man. What they found was a pack. The first plasma bolt screamed through the air, a blinding flash that seared a chunk of Yi. Stone off the cavern wall. Dane ducked low, rolled off Ashfang's back, and slid behind a spire of bone. He didn't shout, didn't scream. He pointed. Ashfang moved like a black comet, claws slamming into the lead soldier with a force that caved in his chest plate. One moment there was a man. The next missed. A second soldier raised his rifle, but the red-scaled dragon Dane had named Emberfall crashed down from above, wings kicking up a shockwave that sent the others flying. The ambush became a massacre. Dane moved, between the chaos like a shadow, sliding across ash-strewn stone, using the dragon's fury as cover. He grabbed a dropped Karnik sidearm, snapped off 2 precise shots, one to a soldier's neck joint, another to the exposed breather vent under a helmet. The soldier collapsed, gurgling. Dane walked past without looking back. "You dropped?" "Me in a cage," he muttered. "Problem is, I like cages. I just hate being the one inside them." The last soldier ran. He made it 20 feet before a winged beast, and not a dragon, something stranger, multi-eyed and snake-limbed, wrapped around him like a hungry vine. The man's scream was short. Wet. Dane turned, surveyed the blood-slick ground. No cheers, no victory speech, just silence, the kind of silence that happens when Alpha is confirmed. Up in the observation tower, the Karnik's general watched the feed with hollow eyes. 10 trained commandos, he said quietly. Gone. The xenobiologist beside him didn't speak. He was busy pulling up ancient Terran records, not military ones, mythological. Images flickered across his screen. Beasts, riders, a theory forming that he was too afraid to say out loud. The E. General did it for him. He's not controlling them through tech. No, sir, the scientist whispered. He's doing it through dominance, instinct, mythic imprint. The general stepped back from the glass. Seal the lower sectors. No more teams, we don't engage the dragons again. And the human. The general's voice hardened. We start calling him what he is, not a prisoner. He turned away. He's the Pit King now. Back in the depths, Dane knelt beside the body of one of the soldiers. Karnik's gear was elite, but it had one weakness. Arrogance. They always assumed it was the weapon that made the soldier. He pulled a pulse rifle from the body, ran a systems check, still intact, still hot. He stood slowly and looked around. The dragons were watching him, waiting. And they weren't just dragons anymore, they were a legion. Dane slung the rifle over his shoulder. We're done playing defense. Ashfang let out a guttural bellow that echoed through the chambers. Dane raised his voice, not loud, but lethal. Next time they send a team, we send them pieces back. From somewhere in the pit's lower catacombs, an ancient roar answered, not one of rage, but agreement. They didn't give him a crown. He took one, built from scorched bone, molten metal, and the silence of anything, stupid enough to challenge him. Dane stood at the edge of the ancient chamber, where roots bled glowing sap, and the walls whispered in dead languages. The dragons knelt in a circle around him, claws retracted, heads bowed. Not out of fear, but respect. Ashfang, the black-scaled alpha, lowered his massive skull until Dane could rest his palm between its eyes. I didn't ask for this, Dane muttered, but deep inside, it felt right. A massive thrum pulsed through. The stone. The pit was changing, responding. Doors sealed for centuries slid open with grinding screams. Caverns no one had explored in 1,000 years, lit up with bioluminescent glyphs. It was waking up, because he was. And every corner of this place, from the hatchery dens to the skeletal battlefields, now whispered one title: Pit King. High. Above, the Karnic Senate convened in emergency mode. Giant holograms flickered with infrared footage of dragons moving in coordinated formations, guarding, patrolling, training under human command. "This is beyond containment," one diplomat hissed. "He's organizing them, teaching them military structure," another snapped. "He was a grunt, not a tactician," the xenobiologist interrupted quietly. "You don't understand. Humans aren't dangerous because of brute force," he tapped. Her screen showing ancient Earth tribal structures, battle tactics, mythology. They're dangerous because of how quickly they adapt. And now he's adapting the monsters. Dane walked the central chamber like a general inspecting his troops. Emberfall flew overhead in a tight arc, roaring to signal the rest. Two young wyverns snapped playfully at each other. He barked a single command. They froze. Obedience, control, purpose. This wasn't a pack anymore. It was an army. He turned to a tunnel freshly revealed by the shifting walls. It led deeper into the pit than any dragon dared go. The air from within rolled out in waves, warm, dense, full of static. Dane stepped forward. Ashfang moved to block him. "No," Dane said, voice sharp. "Whatever's in there, it's calling." Inside the tunnel, the temperature dropped. Not cold, not heatless. Void, something ancient slumbered beyond the veil of time. Something built the pit, seeded it with horrors, then vanished. At the heart of it was a throne, not shaped for a human, not shaped for anything that walked on two legs. But as Dane approached, it began to change. Stone flowed like molten metal, rearranging itself, shrinking, reshaping, becoming a seat made for him. He didn't hesitate. He sat, and the entire pit roared. Every dragon within the underground labyrinth felt the pulse, not sound law. It wasn't just dominance now. Dane was bonded to the system that ran the pit security grids, creature archives, thermal maps, old war tech hidden in vaults. He felt it in his veins, not power, authority. In the control towers, Karnic's engineers screamed as all their systems went dark. "Sir, he's hijacked the command route." "How?" "That's a sealed network," the general stared at the blinking screens, watching entire maps of the pit shift, and respond like neurons in a living brain. He didn't hijack it. He turned slowly. He became it. Back on the throne, Dane opened his eyes. They glowed like stoked embers. He stood slowly, voice steady. "We're not hiding anymore," he said, speaking not just to dragons, but to the enemy listening far above. "You made monsters to fight your wars." He glanced at the weapons lining the chamber walls. Ancient, forbidden tech left to rust. "Let me show you what happens when monsters learn to fight back," Ashfang roared. The chamber cracked, and the war for the surface had just begun. Thikai, dragons didn't need wings to fly, they needed permission, and Dane just gave it. The underground shook like a beast exhaling. From deep within the pit, a thunderous energy rose, not from machines but from intention. The throne chamber cracked open, sending lightning down the ancient walls as hibernating systems powered back to life. Ceilings folded away like petals. Sky opened, and for the first time in centuries, the dragons looked up. Dane stood at the center of the awakening, wrapped in molten light, his hand resting on Ashfang's massive shoulder. "You've slept long enough," he said, voice low but resonant. "Time to remind the stars what real monsters look like." Emberfall shrieked above, her wings spreading wide as molten heat poured off her body in waves. Behind her, more dragons gathered, scales rippling, wings flexing, claws tapping stone in restless rhythm. The war chant of beasts preparing to rise. Dane climbed onto Ashfang's back, helmet sliding down over his eyes, HUD syncing with the pit's mainframe. Targets locked, route mapped, kill order confirmed. Up in orbit, the Karnic's armada floated above the prison planet like a metallic reef. Dozens of warships, shaped like blades and spears, designed to cut atmosphere and crush. Resistance. Unidentified aerial signatures incoming, a navigator stammered, eyes wide. Fast, multiple, not ships, organic. The commander squinted at the readouts. Impossible. Nothing can survive atmospheric breach from that altitude unaided. The sensor... Tech blinked. They're not just surviving, sir, they're gaining altitude. Ashfang erupted from the pit like a meteor, black wings tearing through layers of cloud and ash. Beside him, Emberfall spiraled upward, her body a streak of fire. Behind them, a dozen more dragons burst into the sky, silent at first, then roaring, in unison. Screams of vengeance, war songs written in flame and fury. At the center of it all, strapped to the back of a god-shaped weapon, Dane adjusted his targeting overlay. Let's see how your toys handle real fire. The first Karnix gunship opened fire, plasma rounds screaming through the air in deadly arcs. Ashfang rolled mid-air, avoiding the barrage like a seasoned pilot. Emberfall dove, heat trails curling. Behind her like burning flags. One smaller dragon took a hit, spun out, but didn't fall. It banked, stabilized, and dove straight through the ship's cockpit, ripping metal apart like paper. The sky lit up with explosions. War had come, and it had wings. Inside the command vessel, panic bloomed like wildfire. They're adapting mid-flight, they're coordinating. This is pack-level tactics. Negative, the general growled. This isn't a pack anymore. He stared at the data, where a glowing dot marked the lead signature. Faster, stronger, broadcasting encrypted signals even Karnix tech couldn't decipher. This is command-level coordination. That human isn't just riding them. His fist clenched. He's leading them. Dane flew like he was born to it. The wind screaming past, fire burning in his chest, the stars rushing to meet him. He pointed toward the main shipyard floating, just above the atmosphere. Primary target, he said. Ashfang roared, and every dragon turned in sync, eyes glowing, wings folding in for terminal velocity. Together, they became a falling storm. The Karnix fleet responded with full force. Turret, bank spinning, missile pods releasing heat seekers, ion cannons flaring with white-blue fire. It was enough to burn a moon, but dragons weren't built by logic. They were built by fear. Ashfang dove through the hailstorm, wings shielded by kinetic plasma, scales deflecting beams. Emberfall corkscrewed between flak bursts, searing into a cruiser's engine with a blast of white-hot breath. Dane fired 2 shots from the stolen rifle, striking a command relay on the ship's side, disrupting internal defenses. He leapt from Ashfang's back mid-flight, smashed through the viewing glass of the bridge, and hit the floor with his boots already running. Inside the ship, the real slaughter began. By the time Dane emerged again, the flagship was breaking apart, fire bleeding from its seams. He called out through the bond. Ashfang caught him mid-air. The rest of the dragons pulled back into formation. Nothing in the sky dared move against them now. The fleet was broken, the heavens burned, and one truth became inescapable to everyone watching. The Furm. Dragons belonged to the Pit King now. On the ground across multiple worlds, rebellion screens lit up with the footage. Pirate networks, outlaw colonies, even quiet enslaved cities held their breath as the images streamed in. A man, riding death, breathing fire, unchained. A message followed, bouncing from satellite to satellite, voice low, human, defiant. You built cages for monsters. Now the monsters fly. The Empire called him a beast, but beasts don't lead revolutions. They just forgot one thing about humans. We break things before we bow. Smoke curled from the broken husk of the Karnix flagship, drifting in silent spirals through the upper atmosphere. Below it, across the shattered sky lanes, the once invincible fleet now floated in pieces, torn, burning and bleeding vacuum. At the center of it all stood Dane, boots planted on the back of Ashfang, wings outstretched, eyes burning like fire forged in gravity. A crown of ash settled on his brow, not made, not given, but earned. He had no flag. He needed none, because everyone was watching now. On distant colonies, holofeeds streamed the images in grainy defiance. Prisoners in work camps stopped and stared. Mercenaries paused mid-fight. Even children in the slums of enslaved mining moons whispered one word like a prayer: human. But not like. A race, like a warning. Above the ruined planet, the last Karnix command ship prepared for a desperate move. Inside the war chamber, panic had given way to quiet, cold resolve. The High General stood at the window, hands behind his back. "He's a myth now," one officer said. "Even if we kill him, they'll still follow the idea." The general didn't blink. "Then we don't kill the man, we kill the idea." A silent order passed. A weapon was armed, and deep within the bowels of the command ship, something old stirred, something the Karnix had kept hidden even from their own soldiers. Godkiller, not a dragon, not a human, something in between. Dane saw it coming before the clouds even shifted. The sky trembled, then it opened. It was a weapon stitched from bone and metal, wings powered by dark matter and pain. Eyes glowed with synthetic rage. It didn't. Raw, it screamed like a planet dying. Ashfang snarled. Emberfall dropped beside him. Every dragon shifted uneasily. Because this wasn't a fight, it was a challenge. Dane stood on Ashfang's back and pulled off his helmet. "Stay," he said. The dragons growled low. "That's an order." He leapt, no armor, no pulse rifle, just a human falling toward the machine God built to destroy everything he had raised. And as he fell, he screamed, not in fear but in fury. The impact shook the sky. Dane collided with the metal beast mid-air, driving his fist straight into its faceplate. Sparks erupted. He grabbed a spine joint and wrenched hard. Metal snapped like bone. The Godkiller slammed him into a mountainside. The mountain broke. Dane rose from the rubble, bleeding, cracked ribs, shoulder dislocated but alive. He spat blood and grinned. "I've had worse." He ran up its back like a wildfire, dodging plasma bursts, cutting through armor with pieces of its own shattered hull. He reached the core panel, ripped it open, exposed the engine of death. And then he did something Karnix never planned for. He didn't detonate it. He connected to it, through the neural interface, through the pain, through every shattered memory. Serve Earth and every broken brother he lost in the wars. He overrode the system.